welcome to Leaders of Tomorrow Season 10, 10 seasons of empowering entrepreneurs, 10 seasons of recognizing innovation. I'm Sunanda Jayaseelan. On the show tonight, a very special conversation with someone who doesn't need much introduction, talking to us about the big picture as far as the meta universe is concerned, talking to us about the work that they do for small businesses here in the country. It's my pleasure to welcome on the show Ajit Mohan, MD and Vice President, India at Meta. Ajit, good having you here with us on the Leaders of Tomorrow. You know, the last time that I spoke with you, we were talking about all the things that have changed. And in the past 1 year, so much more has changed, including, of course, your name from Facebook to Meta. I'm going to come and talk about that in just a moment.
Great being back, Sunanda. Thank you for having me.
First up, though, I want to talk about that center that you've inaugurated very recently at Gurugram. That center, I understand, is going to work very closely for and with small businesses. Just give us some more clarity, some more color on what the center is going to do.
That's right, Sunanda. So we opened a new office space in Gurgaon. And what we're really doing is thinking of it as a hub. I think the Center for Fueling India's New Economy, with the objective of using all our resources, all our teams who are based in Gurgaon, as well as connected to the wider teams globally, with the agenda of training and skilling small businesses on one hand and creators on the other hand. And I think we'll talk more about it today. In many ways, the agenda of creators is quite linked to the agenda of building brands and businesses. So we don't see it as separate. And one of the things that we have done is taken on a goal of really skilling 10 million small businesses and entrepreneurs over the next 3 years. We believe there's a huge opportunity. Clearly, we have seen in the last 2 years in particular, entrepreneurship come alive in India. Capital is not constrained anymore. And with 700 million people online, I think the canvas to build great businesses is massive. And we believe that we have an enabling role. And the center essentially pulls together a lot of work we are doing in terms of making sure the right toolkits are available, the right kind of education is available, and to make sure that entrepreneurs learn how to leverage our platforms to build businesses that are global in nature. So that's the purpose of the center.
So for a small business that's watching today's interview and saying, fantastic, I want to get trained, I also want to be, amongst the best. How do they really go about getting the tools? How do they register themselves? What should they be doing? What do you want them to know?
I think, we have a lot of conversations with entrepreneurs and small businesses every day. And one of the things that really comes through, Sunanda, is for many of them, a lot of their business plans are built around Facebook and Instagram and WhatsApp. And we see that, right? I mean, we see that in terms of their presence on the platform. We see that in terms of how they are using our platform to reach out to new customers, experimenting. So in many ways, what this does is for those businesses who are today not large enough and who are in the early part of the journey, but still have presence on our platform, are starting to leverage it. We are essentially saying we'll make an active effort to accelerate all the work that we do to make sure that they're aware of the full utility of our platforms. So there's no application. The reality is that when they're present on our platform through a Facebook page, or Instagram handle, when they're using WhatsApp, we have teams that are, quite embedded into the community, and a lot of the effort is to make sure these resources are available publicly, and to connect the dots with people who may need them. But they don't really have to apply anywhere. There is a small business hub that we have put out there. but equally, they will see that our teams will reach out to them over time. But for a lot of them, the starting point of their business is creating a presence on our platform, and I think we're quite cognizant of that, and that becomes the beginning of hopefully a deeper engagement and relationship where we can be useful to them.
You were just talking to us about the 3 platforms that you have as far as small businesses are concerned. I want to take a step back and really talk about the potential as you see it for India's small businesses and the market. What do you want to tell someone who's watching today's interview about the outlook that you have as far as the potential, as far as the size of the market is concerned for India's small businesses? What makes you excited about the growth and the opportunities for India's entrepreneurs?
It's a great question, Sunanda, and I think it's important to recognize how much has changed in the last couple of years, right? And I think it's important again to characterize the big shift that happened over the last 5 or 6 in India with a very large number of people coming online. The number is north of 700 million. It's all happened in a short period of time. And what some of the constraints on physical movement that were instituted in the context of the last 2 years and our response, both in India and globally, to the pandemic in terms of doing the right things on distancing. What it did was essentially it shifted behaviors on the consumer side, where people had access to the internet, but the internet became a way of living for hundreds of millions of people in India, right? So in many ways, it accelerated what otherwise may have taken many years to get used to using a wider set of services, right? Assuming that you can buy stuff on the internet, or you can have access to entertainment on the internet, all of that got accelerated. And for businesses, on the other hand, where there were constraints on their ability to conduct businesses offline, in many ways, they were forced to experiment with setting up presence online, marketing online. And the reality is that both consumers and businesses liked that, what they saw, right?
Sure.
Obviously it came with a lot of, the last 2 years, it's not been easy for the country, and there's been a lot of trauma. But that essentially, both the shift in consumers and the shift in businesses, what it has meant is that there is now a big opportunity to build online businesses and reach out to national and global markets very quickly. That's the big change. And I have to say, I think it's also happened at a time when entrepreneurship and the idea of setting something up on your own has not been alive in India as much as it is now. Fueled by multiple things, right? It's fueled by the fact that there's technology change. It's fueled by access to capital, right? Because both domestic and international capital is looking at India as a big opportunity, and they see India and the economic transformation that it's going through for what it is. And frankly, the other side of it, I think there are young folks coming out of college or young professionals willing to leave their job to say, I have an idea and I want to pursue it and build an institution out of it. All of it are coming together, Sunanda.
So a follow-up to that is really a continuation of that question, Ajit. Even as your transformation has happened from Facebook to Meta, what's the kind of expanded investment, if any, that you can talk to us about that you are seeing, and the kind of expanded potential perhaps that you're seeing as far as India's entrepreneurs are concerned?
I think one of the bets that we made a while ago was, even before the pandemic, even before the big hockey stick that we have seen on growth, both on our platforms and on our business side, the bet was that if you look at India and the role of digital and the stage of the economy, the assumption was that a lot of the opportunity was going to be powered by small businesses. That was true in 2019. In many ways, if you look at the marketing platform that Facebook earlier and Meta now has built, it was always solving for small businesses first, because we believe that we had built a platform with the power of personalized advertising that made it easy for businesses of all sizes, especially the small ones, which in its early days tend to be limited in resources, they're frugal in their spend. The ability to target only those customers that they want to, and yet be able to target those customers anywhere in the world was a superpower that we had and we continue to have. That's why we made the bet 3 years ago. I think to the question, what has changed in the last year? I think the canvas of opportunity has exploded. Two or three things to call out, Sananda. One, companies are a lot more ambitious about building national and global businesses from a very early stage. When you look at timelines, right? I think 10 years ago, most small businesses wanted to see a lot of traction. They wanted to see growth for a while before they would even look at expanding to other states, let alone think of their businesses as global. I think there's a lot more ambition at the moment and a lot more confidence to chase that ambition, where I do think, thanks to digital and platforms like ours, there's comfort that the idea that they have can be relevant for people, not just in their city or in a local community, that it can be relevant for the world. And platforms like us allow businesses to reach that global consumer base pretty quickly. That's one big change that we're seeing. I think the second big change that we're seeing is the desire to build the direct connect with consumers, right? I think we have now given it a label, D2C, direct to consumer. But fundamentally, the confidence that, let's build products and services and be in a position to not just build a consumer brand, but be in a position to have the ability to ship directly to consumers, to have a lot more connect with consumers directly. And I think that's been enabled by the scale of the India internet and platforms like ours. Those are the two big areas where I see a lot of change. The willingness to go global from day one, and in every sector, having a lot more confidence to build affinity and business models going all the way to the last mile.
Ajit, if you can hold that thought, I'm going to take a quick commercial break. We're back in just a moment. Welcome back. You're with us here on Leaders of Tomorrow, and our icon tonight, an exclusive conversation with Meta India. Ajit, thank you very much for calling out some of those trends, particularly as a D2C business. And you were just talking about an example of that, and it's interesting because very recently a friend of mine, she's based in Mumbai, she reached out to me saying she was quite interested in sending me some products of a personal care line that she has started now marketing and selling, and she's sending it to me all the way in Bangalore. I'm curious as to how and what perhaps could be the kind of margins that a small business like this is making, and something that has been enabled only because they're using platforms like yours, and because platforms like yours have created this entire genre, have created this entire generation of micro entrepreneurs and female micro entrepreneurs.
I think you're absolutely right. And I think, just to give you a sense, I mean, when we look at the data, even in the last 2 years, one of the things that our platforms has enabled, even in the context of entrepreneurship, is the rise of the female entrepreneur. I think the statistic after the other showing that the percentage of small businesses that are run by women has expanded dramatically in the last couple of years. So that's definitely true. And I think, to the point that you were making about are we building businesses that are sustainable, I think that's exactly the point. What platforms like WhatsApp, I think, to the example that you mentioned of your friend, or Instagram for that matter, where I think if you look at the last 3 years, there's a whole category of businesses whose only digital presence is on Instagram, right? Yes. I think they both solve two things. One, the scale of distribution, right? I mean, that's always been one challenge, which is how do you build the brand in a way that is relevant for consumers outside of the larger cities, right? Outside of the reach of mass media vehicles. And I think digital today has the reach where you can now build a brand between Facebook and Instagram and WhatsApp, where you can reach the 700 millionth customer in the country. So I think the ease of building a brand, the ease of building affinity has dramatically changed. And then, of course, I think to the point that you're making, the cost of it. I think in beauty, for example, I mean, I think you mentioned that one of the challenges for consumer goods companies has always been the cost of the last mile distribution. And a lot of that is changing given some of the new transportation and logistics layers that are being built. But the enabler to that is that you can discover these consumers online in an easy manner and quite cheaply.
Sure.
So what would have been quite difficult in terms of reaching the 700 millionth customer, in terms of building affinity, knowing what kind of products to build for them, and then to market to them and to build affinity, a lot of that has become easier and cheaper because of platforms like ours. And I think that makes it easier for your friend to kind of start a beauty lineup and discover what's working, where I'm assuming she may be starting with our close group of friends and family first. And by the way, I mean, this is how a lot of social commerce businesses have exploded, leveraging WhatsApp in the last few years. I mean, it started with someone kind of testing out products with a very close group of their friends and families, and suddenly discovering that they're onto a big idea and they can use WhatsApp to build affinity amongst, larger and larger expanding circles of people who eventually become customers of that product. So I think it's a big thing. On one hand, Facebook and Instagram makes it very easy to discover new brands of products and services. And on the other hand, with WhatsApp, I think you're starting to see the early stages of the power of what we call conversational commerce, right? How do you kind of build affinity and drive sales in the context of a mode of communication that we are all very used to and are deeply engaged around the whole day, conversations. We believe that'll drive commerce in a big way as well. So I think both are true. And what you're seeing is getting replicated in millions of ways around the country.
So then let's talk about the flip side, if I can call it that really, Ajit, of this entire transformation, this digital and tech transformation that we're seeing. And I want to talk about small town India and the small town consumer. In the past 2 years, where we have had this massive push towards going online in technology and digital, has the consumer and has the user in Bharat and in small town India also been carried along on this journey? Have they understood what digital transformation is, the opportunities, the challenges? Are you talking to them perhaps differently? What would you like to tell us?
Two things. One, I don't think there is any hierarchy anymore. I think an entrepreneur in a small town has the same odds of success as an entrepreneur living in a large metro. I don't think there's any difference whether it's access to capital, access to talent, especially in a world where we're all very comfortable with a very distributed way of working. So I think the big change is the confidence, right? So for anyone listening to this and you're thinking of an idea and thinking, am I constrained because of where I am physically? I don't think that holds true anymore. I think the second part, of course, is when I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs, when I talk to a lot of founders, I do think you're starting to see entrepreneurs or founders who've come from smaller cities or smaller towns sometimes do have a inherently better understanding of the needs of the smaller town customer, right? It doesn't have to be. I think there's nothing preventing someone who grew up in a large city to understand what's happening in the smaller cities. But of course, I think if you've grown up, you're probably a bit more cognizant of the opportunity there, the ways of working, what are the norms, consumer behaviors. And I think you're starting to see, at this stage of explosive entrepreneurship, founders from smaller towns solving for small town problems, right? Which are economic opportunities. But equally, I don't think we can bracket this into big town, small town, into easier manner either, because I do think there are ideas in health and education and entertainment that, presumably are cracking for small town India, they have global appeal. There are small town founders solving for the context that they are familiar with, but equally, I also believe that as they scale and as they become larger businesses, many of them will find those opportunities to be global.
That was part one. And as we're ending tonight's show, I'm going to leave you with a quick snippet of what we have lined up on part two.
I think the bar has gone up for leaders like me and other leaders to be a lot more connected to our teams, because the role that we are playing is not just of running a business. It's also to make sure that we are aware of what's happening in people's lives and to show up not just with empathy and care, but hopefully be in a position where you're able to influence personal outcomes for individuals.
Do also let us know what you thought of tonight's show, and if you have any questions for us based on this interview, our contact details on your screens as we speak. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.